Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed. Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Then let's begin. I'll weave together some fragments for solving the riddle of the epitaph. Byrne Castell opened both of her hands, and like a planetarium, all of the fragments throughout this empty space began to spin, leaving tails behind them. The expression planetarium might have been surprisingly fitting. Multiple fragments were tied together by gold lines, and what looked like constellations zoomed by us rapidly, one after another. It felt almost as though we were dashing through space at an incredible speed. Then, with the tails of light drifting behind them, several brightly glowing fragments swirled around Byrne Castell. It looked almost like she'd created her own solar system, with her as the sun. That solar system surrounding Byrne Castell grew to a radius large enough to swallow us up. And every once in a while, one of those satellite fragments zoomed right past me. When those fragments passed by me, it felt as though some kind of memory welled up inside me, so I sensed it. These fragments are probably like a crystallization of memories. They aren't memories, they're fragments of worlds. Well, I guess they might feel like memories to you. Then, let's begin. Let's start with this fragment. One of the satellites in the solar system was slowly sucked into an inward trajectory with Byrne Castell at its center. After drawing a spiral and approaching her, it settled down in the palm of Byrne Castell's outstretched hand. Then it glittered brightly, painting over the world with pure white. The beloved hometown definitely won't betray our expectations. The only past father held dear happened during his childhood years. I remember that. This is from the third game, when Aunt Ava was just about to solve the riddle of the epitaph and was thinking it over with this witch inside her or whatever. That's right. And from these thoughts, she made her way to the correct answer. In other words, this fragment shows a vital hint for reaching the truth. It means that this theory is not mistaken. So you're saying we should assume this beloved hometown isn't a metaphor or anything like that, but the place grandfather actually spent his youth. That's right, and at the very least it isn't Odawara. Odawara is definitely where he was born, but I don't think that's the hometown he loved. I imagine all of us siblings have the same place in mind. Right, this probably isn't Odawara. From what I've heard, he had a very fun time as a youth. That's right. Aunt Ava and her siblings said it wasn't Odawara, and not only that, it looks like everyone guessed where grandfather's hometown was. Right. And annoyingly, the actual location isn't spoken of in any of the fragments. Well, duh, if I told you that, there'd be too many hints. If it wasn't a hard riddle, there'd be no point to it. Uh-oh, that's a hint too. Just where is this hometown of grandfather's? We can't even start if we don't know that. You mean you couldn't start, so you stopped thinking. Since it had to be a place where he could have lived, the number of possibilities is limited. Well, this is the toughest part. You were the witch who could certainly solve any riddle that can be solved, weren't you? So you took those limited possibilities. In other words, everywhere on Earth, and considered every single piece of land the grandfather might have lived on. That would work too, but that way, no amount of time would be enough. So I needed to take some more hints into consideration to wring out the answer. Didn't you say it yourself? You said it didn't have to be a river of water flowing down it. If the word sweetfish is too complicated, why not forget it? Think of a river. Linking it with a family tree wasn't a bad idea. Try thinking about how to link a river with something else along those lines. A sweetfish river running through the hometown. However, this river isn't truly a river. Ava thought of something else, something that could be linked with the river. Sure, but if it isn't a river, then why the sweetfish? Think, a river that runs through the hometown. But it isn't a river of water running down, it's something that can be likened to a river. Behold the Sweetfish River running through the beloved hometown. Ava knew where the hometown was, so she could forget about the Sweetfish hint. However, since we don't know where it is, this could be a hint for us. I worried too much about the Sweetfish River. The Sweetfish part didn't really matter that much at all. That isn't true. It was an excellent hint, wasn't it? Well, of course, maybe there was no need for it to be sweetfish. What are these sweetfish? If the river isn't a literal river, then of course sweetfish probably doesn't mean the kind of fish that swims. Yeah, and on top of that, Rosa tossed it aside, saying that sweetfish weren't that significant. On the other hand, Ava said it wasn't important for them to be sweetfish, but that it was still an excellent hint. In other words, sweetfish is a key to make you think of something else. If that something is a different word, but a word that sweetfish makes you think of, then Ava's line about how it probably didn't have to be sweetfish makes sense. From these thoughts on, Ava formed some theory, went to the library, looked through some books, and verified that she was right. In short, on Ava formed some sort of theory that the true nature of the Sweetfish River running through the hometown. Then she opened a certain book to determine whether that theory was correct or not. In other words, this theory was something that could be verified through some kind of book. Also, she figured out that what the Sweetfish River was, she figured out the rest of the riddle very quickly. Good thinking. The epitaph continues on, saying as you travel down the river, you will see a village. At that point in time, Ava hadn't yet solved the 3 lines starting with this one. What is this village? What does it mean? Do you find one if you go down the river? Right before my eyes, the pieces that I hadn't been able to understand at all began to snap into place all by themselves. I couldn't even remember to close my open mouth. My throat grew completely dry. Is it really okay for this to be the answer? But really? So, if we figure out what the Sweetfish River running through the hometown is, that leads us directly to understanding that as you travel down the river, as you see a village stuff, and then we get to the key to the Golden Land. Correct. And we know that because even Ava didn't know what the village meant until she checked the book. Damn it. Just what is this book? But this isn't 6 characters at all. I'm absolutely sure this is the answer, but this doesn't reach 6 characters at all. Did you stop thinking again? In that case, think of a way you could read it with 6 characters. If you can think of none, then research it. There has to be an answer. You must not doubt that. Oh, is believing in that too much for you? If only you just cry yourself to sleep, then you can just give up and die. I found it. This is the key to the Golden Land. Then Ava found the key to the Golden Land. Yeah, and this key was some kind of word, number, or string of characters, 6 characters long. That's it. If we know the key's true identity has 6 characters, the meaning of the first twilight changes drastically. On the first twilight, offer the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. The 6 chosen by the key 6 characters. In other words, it means to sacrifice the 6 characters chosen by the key on the first twilight. The key indicates a certain group of 6 people. No, we should say it indicates a certain group of 6 things. If this doesn't mean a literal command to offer sacrifices, for example, it could be an anagram. An anagram? Do you mean playing with letters? Yes, Kairi-san has been thinking that way ever since that moment. On the second twilight, there are those who remain, which means that at the very least that something has a limited number of characters. You could read it, it's telling you something that remaining characters after the first 6 characters are removed. In other words, on the first twilight we take a list of characters that's longer than 6, kill the 6 that are the key, and then do something with the characters that remain. That's right, but like Kairi said, what should we kill the characters from? We don't know this longer string of characters that we're supposed to be killing from. On the first twilight, kill the 6 characters that are the key. On the first twilight. In other words, by the time we reach the twilight, some strings of characters already exist. That might be a set of Japanese characters, but knowing grandfather's taste, could it be something in English? That first twilight has more than 6 characters, even though the Japanese phrase just 4. Good. That idea of yours isn't bad, Battler-kun-san. Well, we'll end the video there. Thanks for joining me. I hope everyone has all the hugs or head pats you could ever want or need. Bye.